Jarzinka. How's it going, everyone? Hey, Post, how are you?
What's up, Jess?
You were prompt, man. You were like right
Well,
on the dot there.
after watching Martino the other night, I figure I got to get on the ball, man.
Yeah. Seriously. Well, let's give
Good
everybody
done,
like
like Gary.
yeah. Yeah, I got my set for you. I try to tailor it. You played with Fernando Vina, right?
Oh, I'll say it again. I what?
Did
Oh,
you play
Fernando.
with
Yeah,
Fernando Vina?
he was ahead of me. He was ahead of me. I had a big league camp with him one time with Milwaukee.
So got that. We got Ernie Banks, the
Oh,
Marlins. We got
sick.
everything.
Yeah, let's play too. Oh, Marlins. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we got it all.
And the Empire State Building. Is that the Empire State Building?
Out of Legos, nonetheless.
Ah, where'd you buy that?
My mom got that for me as an
Oh, okay.
adult as a birthday gift.
Oh, all right. I thought you were gonna say you did it.
Oh man, that would have been awesome if I created that. They did a whole series of them too. Um, Hello to everybody joining in. There's a question at the bottom for those of you who haven't been on the show before. You can type a question out for Anthony Iapoce to answer while we do this. I've got some of my own, and we'll try and get everybody's going. What do you say we start it up?
Good.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is currently the Hot Stovers. We're here on the New York Pro Scouts channel. I'm Jesse Manning, and we do this every Monday and Thursday with exciting guests. Today we have a very exciting guest, Anthony Iapoce. You're the hitting coach for the Chicago Cubs for several years now. You were with the Rangers as the hitting coach, the Blue Jays, Marlins. You played and coached in the minor leagues, independent ball. So tell everybody about yourself and your relationships with scouts. Why are you here?
I'm here because of the New York Scouting Pro Scouting Association. I was living in the Midwest. I moved back to New York in '09 and got in contact with Nick DiOrenzo, who got me in contact with Billy Blitzer. I just started working with the Cubs, and Billy got me in touch with Victor Feld and got me to speak at the Sandlot dinner. And there I met Gary and Perone and Palumbo, and met a whole bunch of great people in New York scouting, and started going to the dinner every year and all the New York events. It's just been cool meeting everybody and being part of like just New York baseball and trying to do different things in different places for the kids and for the youth baseball. It also brought me to the IABF, the Italian American Baseball Federation, with Joe Q. So everything's been going pretty good, and we just keep trying to build things in New York and get more kids to play ball more.
What is the cliff notes of your career and how is scouting? I know you're coaching and you've coached a lot, but how does scouting play in?
It always played in it. So if you start out as a coach in the minor leagues, especially when starting out with the Marlins, 06, 7, 8, but at the end of the year, you had to write a report on players who you thought were prospects on the other teams that you played, or players that you think will help within the organization. So right there, you start grading players on the scale that organization have, 20 to 80, and then you write where you think they can help. But then you grade them out future where you think they could be as an everyday player or starter. Then as you get the job as a coordinator, as they did with Toronto for 3 years and the Cubs for 3 years, you're going to all levels of the organization. So you're going to pretty much every league in the minor leagues. And even though you're watching your own guys, you're scouting players on the other team and where they might fit in your organization, as well as coaches on the teams. You're watching how coaches interact with their players. So maybe something opens up, you want to bring them into the culture that the team you're with has established. And then my 3 years with the Cubs, there were a few times that we had some very high draft picks when I was there. I got asked to go out probably right before the draft, a couple weeks before the draft, to workouts and also games. And that's kind of a total beast in his own. The scouting, the amateur scouting is just incredible, as you know. So just getting out there, you're in two cities, in one day on two planes watching two games. And then, a guy may go 0 for 4 and not even swing the bat. Or I went and saw a game on in Texas one time, and they walked a kid 3 times, and he fouled the pitch off, and I had to write something about him. So the scouts were telling me, it's not easy. So
Yeah.
so being able to do that and get out there with the scouts and see how much they work, especially the guys that I was with the Cubs, it's kind of going all over the place, and the reports that they write and the passion that they have for trying to find that player. Uh, just a different side of it. And then also when I was with the Cubs, we used to do a thing. It was for our coordinators with pitching, hitting, catching coordinator, field coordinator would get together with the cross checkers within
Right.
the organization for each region, and then the front office, and kind of get together for 3 days and do presentations on what we like as coaches, what we see, and then how they get in and how they sign players. So even still today is sitting in the dugout, you're still constantly evaluating every player you come across, whether it's a pitcher or a position player, or how a guy runs and your timing guys. You're still doing all these types of things because the goal is to win a championship, and you want to find players that are going to fit to your team and to the culture that you want to bring them in to help them win a championship. So you're constantly evaluating scouting even as a coach.
It's funny you brought up that 0 for 3 with a pop out with the
Yeah.
walks example, because I talked to Buck Showalter once and he said scouting is about that. It's when the kid goes 0 for 3 or they walk 3 times and they, foul out. What did they do on and off the field? That's
Yeah.
where the scouting really comes in.
Yeah, those are the things that I looked at. I looked at because it rained, so they didn't really get to do anything on the field. So I was kind of watching how he interacted with his teammates, the way he played catch, how he ran on and off the field, how he was in a dugout. You could get a good sense of that. And, being in the dugout all the time and then going out and scouting that, you get a good feel of how players respond to this guy, especially if he's going to be a first and second rounder,
Yeah.
potentially one of the best players in the organization. Hopefully he could lead. You're definitely looking for those qualities that you see that resemble players that you coached. I was lucky enough to get us to go play baseball at Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas, Division I, on the last game of the season at Yankee Stadium. 1991 New York City Championship, Monsignor McClantz. You can't take that away from us. I have to say that every interview. And that game, I get a call the next day about, Lamar University. I didn't know where it was. He said it's in Beaumont. I had no idea where that was. And we had a map on the floor. Me and my dad trying to figure out where, outside of
Where Beaumont, Texas is.
Yeah, trying to figure it out, right? And after about a year or two playing at Lamar, you get to establish a relationship with the coach. And I finally asked, I said, hey, you only saw me one time. I walked, hit a double, hit into a force play. What was it like? I had no plays in the outfield. He said it was the way you played catch. It was the way you interacted with your teammates, and it was the way you carried yourself on and off the field. He's like, you weren't really sprinting on and off the field, but there was something about the way you were with the teammates. So that kind of stuck with me. I was fortunate enough to get to play baseball, to be now working with the Cubs because of the way I played catch at Yankee
Unbelievable,
Stadium.
right?
Yeah, you never know who's watching. That's always my message to parents and players. You could go to all these scouting events and you could show good on the radar or of your exit velocity, but they're watching other things. They're watching you interact. They're watching you talk to your coaches. They're watching talk to your parents. They're watching you walk away. So there may be something that you do well that doesn't show up on the scouting scale that may bring a college scout, a pro scout, that toward you, especially when you meet and greet them and get to know the kid.
100%.
Yeah.
So we've already, of course, kind of jumped into it. We're talking baseball, but before we keep going, we got to give the show a name. So you've played for some pretty inventive minor league teams, the Beloit Snappers, the Portland Sea Dogs, Jupiter Hammerheads. So we're the Hot Stovers by Bobby Valentine and Gary Perone. That's had a good run, but what should we call the show?
Where did it start?
I love it. All right, welcome to Where Did It Start, everybody. If you have questions, keep popping them in and we'll get to some of the audience questions soon. You love to talk to players and say, where are you from?
Yep.
So you led right into it. Where did that question come from? Where are you from? You
talked
a little bit.
I take this wherever I go. You know that. We talked about that. So this is a picture of where I grew up, where I played ball in Astoria, New York, 42nd Street and 25th Avenue. It's kind of one day I was coordinating with the Cubs and was just running in my old neighborhood, and these memories start coming back of you just playing ball all day long without no coaches, no parents. It's a 3-on-3. down the street. You make your own rules. You're very accountable. You have to argue for yourself, fight for yourself, but you also have to know when you were wrong and take the ball and go back to the mound. But it was a time where you played with freedom and without being judged. You know, it's very hard today to play with freedom. There's so many people. There's a lot of people on top of you. There's travel teams, even in pro ball. There's tons of coaches. Players are always looking over their shoulders. So I went to this place, my old neighborhood, and then showed one of our field coordinators, Tim Cousins, who's now major league coach with the Orioles, and he's like, "You got to present that to our players." So I presented it to the players, and then we got this idea: have the players present where did it start for them. Players were texting me photos, that instructional league, hanging stuff in hanging stuff in their lockers, and then had the coaches do it. And then when I got the job with Texas, I was like, well, let me try it with the big league guys, see if they'll like it. And they loved it. And then, with Texas, we had so many players from not United States, from Venezuela to the DR to Curacao to Shinsu Chu in Korea, and Ryan Rua in Ohio outside of Cleveland, Mitch Moore. Like, we just had a bunch of players from all over. So you got to see where guys grew up. So I think before I started doing that, you always kind of ask them where they're from and where'd you start playing. You playing other sports, and I think from my experience of being in every minor league
Right.
player, like you could put yourself in that town or that city and what it's about, and then you could start a relationship with them right there. So you just be like, oh yeah, I went there. How's that? And how's this? And I remember Subway being the only thing in town. So things like that. But you start this relationship and you share things in common, but you always have in common, like, where did it start? You kids just playing ball against each other, whether it's in the street, in the backyard, in a barn. I had pictures of barns that guys would send me. So I think when you ask somebody where they're from, it gives you a pretty good idea of not necessarily the type of person, or how they were raised. Not that, but it's kind of the area they're from, and you could generalize and things like that. It kind of helps you out. But I always consider myself like just an interviewer. I think as a coach, you're an interviewer.
Totally.
They're going to tell you, everything of how they like to be coached, things they like to work on, things that they don't like, things that may have hurt them in the past. So you can't do that if you're always telling and teaching and talking all the time. So you got to be an interviewer. I think it shows interest, but it also tells about them, how they want to be coached and how they want to be approached, especially in this game where everything's so individualized.
So would you say listening is one of the most important parts of coaching?
Yeah, but just because, like, you could be listening and not hearing, like
Right.
deep listening or deep hearing. You could just be like doing this the whole time because you're thinking about what you want to say before the person finishes the sentence. So you really gotta listen to the guy and understand where he's coming from and the tone of his voice, of what he's expressing, for you to interact and get in touch with him and get a relationship, so that when things do go wrong in 140 minor league seasons, 162 games, which happens a lot in hitting, pretty much everything goes wrong every day, that you can have those tough conversation and nobody gets offended because everybody knows you're in it together, and then you're pulling from each other. So you could have good conversations, honest conversations, and really tough conversations.
You're in the people business. Even though it's baseball, you're in the people business.
Well,
100%.
people play.
People play.
People play.
So Sean Clancy kind of beat me to the punch. He said
I'm not
Kevin Pillar at Lamar, but I was going to ask you, you went to Monsignor McClancy. Quentin Holmes just got drafted a couple of years ago in the second round by the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Millar out of Lamar. Do you have a relationship? Because those are smaller programs.
Yeah. With Q from McClancy? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I saw Q, when was it? I was in Cleveland playing with the Rangers. We were playing, and he was there signing his contract and meeting everybody. And I hear somebody yelling at me, and it was Q. So check in on him every once in a while. In Arizona, we keep trying to hook up, but now we're a little bit far from each other, but we're still trying to figure that out. So you always keeping tabs on anybody from McClancy. And Kevin Millar, from the TV show, he bounces around every once in a while, shows his face. We laugh about it all the time. So, everybody's not on speed dial, but you're still finding ways to connect with everybody and say hello.
Talk to me about a couple of things that keep you going. So positivity seems to just carry you forward with everything, and seltzer water keeps you going, I guess. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. Seltzer water. I got a double fill right here, mix of strawberry and pineapple bubbly. I like any type of seltzer water. There is none that I don't like. It's almost like pizza for me in New York. I have a little
High
machine.
praise.
Yeah, I have a little machine at home. It's 30 ounces. You pull it, makes the bubbles. I just like the bubbles. The flavor for me doesn't really matter. But anytime um, I get a picture or my wife orders a seltzer, because you can't really go out right now, and they deliver, I take a picture and I send it to our hitters, and they die laughing. I like that case will last one day because I always come into the cage with cans of seltzer water. Now that there's so many out there now. But I think staying positive is a huge deal in baseball because it's such a negative game, and you try to take your baseball into your real life and your real life into your baseball, if that makes sense. So you try to
100%.
take those things like crossing the street and looking both ways and trying to anticipate whether you're going to make it or not. That's the same thing as trying to anticipate a fastball in the box with a count. So I think staying positive is probably one of the, you can't say number one, number two, number three, but for me as a coach, staying positive, being empathetic of what other people are going through are two big characteristics that I think coaches want to have, especially on the hitting department. But it's just such you could do everything you want. You could get the pitch you want. You could lay out the swing you want. You could hit the ball you want as hard as you want, and it could still be an out. Right.
We got Robinson Cancel's here. We got major leaguers
Robbie,
you for hitting tips
Beloit.
here.
Yeah, big leaguer, Milwaukee Brewers, man.
How can he improve his bat speed?
Who? Robbie said that?
Yeah.
Hey, get in your lower half. He'll laugh at that one. So, yeah, it's just you got to really stay positive with the guys, and sometimes it's not fake positive because the major league players could read through that. Sometimes they'll just tell you to be quiet. Like they're tired of lining out all the time. You just look at them and they're like, don't say anything. So you just let them walk on by and give them a little pat. But for the most part, yeah, staying positive through whether it's in the cage work, whether it's just in the game, in the dugout, as a team, you really got to focus and stay positive. And that's kind of been David Ross's message this year, is just really staying positive through anything.
So we're talking about where did it start for you, and you're talking about people that went on to succeed with the Cubs all over baseball. When you were with the Marlins coming up, that's where you got your start coaching. Bo Porter, John Melly, Brandon Hyde, Joe Espada, you had all these guys that went on, and now they're bench coaches, managers. Talk about what was the special sauce.
Yeah, I think you also had Edwin Rodriguez, who managed for him. Andy Haynes is the hitting coach for the Brewers. Tim Cousins is in the dugout.
Everyone.
Tariq Brock now is first base coach with the Pirates. And then when that kind of crew broke up and they graduated and went to Ever, a lot of us went to the Cubs for that rebuild, with Brandon Hyde being the farm director and Tim Cousins, and then Andy Haynes and Maley being the hitting coach. I think our boss Jim Fleming, who was the farm director there, loved to teach and loved to coach. And my first job was in Jamestown for $12,000 part-time, and then graduating to $20,000 full-time in Greensboro. But we didn't really think about that. We all kind of pushed each other, I guess. We all had the same destiny. We were blessed with a lot of good players at that time in the minor leagues, with the Marlins coming up and getting their taste at the big leagues for the first time, and we saw them develop. But I think everybody challenging each other. I think I think our group was kind of not necessarily ahead of the game, but we were always diving into, at that time, 05, 06, like Fangraphs, all the websites that are just trying to do stats. And we were like, what is this? So we're reading articles, we're giving articles to players, we're doing math with them at that time, just trying to find different ways to separate our organization at that time in the minor leagues. But I think it was just a bunch of grinding coaches that, just love being around players and love to challenge players and challenge each other, and then try to build big league players to win a World Series. So, but a lot of it goes to Jim Fleming, and then the field coordinator, John Pearson, who, made the schedule every day and challenged us to be as good as we can be, to constantly help these guys. But they also gave you a ton of freedom. They gave you a ton of freedom to work and do your thing. For the most part. So it was cool for our bosses to let us do that and be ourselves as a staff.
Let's get to a couple of audience questions. Christy Ackert says, what's the biggest challenge going to be in getting hitters ready if and when the season starts? And what's your biggest concern for the proposed season?
Just, I would think, I'm not too concerned about hitters' swings or their timing or anything like that. It's more of the physical nature of every player in baseball, how fast they could get ready. Like, mentality wise, everybody was revved up. They were counting the days down to spring training. You know, it was about 2 weeks left. You know, your starters are starting to get more at bats. They're starting to get more into the game stuff, playing back to back days, and then everything gets shut down. So the challenge for hitters and even coaches is whatever work you're doing at home, what is your intent behind it? Because you guys start going out to hit, and it's, you know, you have a off season program, you have a spring training program, you have an in-season program. We've never had a pandemic program where you're practicing and you don't know when it's
Yeah.
going to start. So, you know, I think everybody who's fears of being a behind or you're not taking this time to get better, which I think is totally false. I think it's a good time for people to take a step back and realize, like, yeah, maybe just hitting off the tee or doing side flips or, you know, just mentally envisioning it or watching my at bats on the computer in my database is really going to help me. I think visualization, anticipation are going to be huge, because even still, when guys come back, I don't think they're going to take the amount of swings that they would in spring training so early. And then by then the games are going to start. And I think with our guys are really good at that. I'm very lucky because of the day games that we have in Wrigley, where maybe they don't get as much work on the field as everybody else, but mentally and visually, they're a lot better than other people. They're able to do their stuff inside a lot because of the early day games. So I think the challenge is more physical, not necessarily swing wise, you know, and mentality wise. We're really trying to stay positive, but I think physically, just the grind of the season and how our schedule is going to be, because really nobody knows how many days in a row we're going to start playing. Just jump right in there.
We were talking the other day, there's an audience question about some Latin coaches that have had an influence. We were talking about seeing like Eloy Jimenez come in when he was 16 and some of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So who are some of the awesome Latin coaches that you got to work with when you were roving around?
I was to say with Chicago, we had a really cool staff because, you know, our Latin program at the time by the time I got there, had already Jamir Candelario, who's a starting third base for the Tigers, you know, Wilson Contreras, and we had just signed Glaber and Eloy and a bunch of. I mean, we were pretty stacked those
Yeah.
years that we were there, position player wise. It was fun to watch, but you know, we had a bunch of guys. I think uh, Carmelo Martinez, when I came in, he was a Latin American field coordinator. He was also my assistant hitting coordinator. Right when I came in, he welcomed me in. We would have presentations. He would break it down. Juan Cabrera, who's one of the coaches on our staff right now, he was in the Dominican Academy. And they're just able to translate things. You can have a translator translate things, but I want you to put your emotions in it and your love and care, like, to knock it out of the park. So you're just not translating. You could have a translator, or you could have a coach translator who's gonna, you know, dive right into the things that you want to dive into if you were speaking the same language. So also Dave Keller, who runs the Dominican program, you know, Ricardo Medina, one of our lower level coaches. So at the Cubs, we were pretty fortunate enough to have, you know, a bunch, and I know I'm missing a bunch of guys that, you know, if they're watching,
These
they're
organizations have like,
yeah.
there's so many coaches, you
There's
can't
just so
name them
many
all.
that come into play, especially in the cage. For me, it's not even having. Okay, so if you bring a young Latin player and he's 17 years old into the States and you're in instructional ball, he definitely, you're trying to make him feel comfortable, right? So for me, it could be a pitching coach. Just come in the cage with me and let's make sure of what we're working on, and we're here for this guy, because the most challenging thing for those players is not baseball. It's getting acclimated to America, away from your family. Just, you know, how to order food when they go out to eat.
Totally.
Like, all these things you have to take in consideration, and you have to understand that everything you say, or even a quarter of things you say, they're not going to understand. So
It,
you have to keep doing it. Everything gets translated. A lot of one-on-ones if you really want to get to guys, but also you bring in players who have gone through that academy that they've gone through, or the same experiences. I would bring them into the cage and then have them translate. So another hitter, maybe 3 years older than the guy, and call him in, and they want to help just as much as anybody because they want to help the kid get acclimated. And for me, that was probably like one of the biggest impacts is when you could have a player interpret your presentation or your work in the cage or in the dugout talk goes far more than any other
Yeah.
coach, you know?
I
So
was listening to Edgardo Alfonso and Keith Rad. Fonzie's been doing a lot of these Instagram lives. He was talking about when he first was coming up, the only thing he knew how to order was number one at McDonald's.
yeah.
Then they went to Wendy's and they didn't have a number one. He didn't
Oh,
know what to do. So
yeah.
yeah, no,
There's always a joke, like, like, yeah, after Latin American kids would learn English, they would always say, yeah, I would order a number one, no pickles. That's that's all they knew how to say. So you got to realize that, like, you got to really understand that. And my first trip down when I got the job with the Blue Jays to our Dominican academy was just like, because you always hear about kids with with the cardboard gloves and not to say how poor they are, but they don't have not even close to the equipment. Like, so it's like in today's game, how everybody talks about weighted bats, light bats, heavy balls, all these training things. People have been doing it in the DR for like 50 years already. Like,
right.
they had weighted basketballs when I was down there, nails in the baseball, black tape, colored tape, so they could call out balls and strikes, weighted bats with pennies taped around them. So they've been doing all this types of training for a long period of time. So it doesn't necessarily where you come from. You know what I mean? If you're going to work at something, you're going to figure out the tools you need, just like the rest of baseball is right now. They're trying to figure out how to get the tools they need to work in their garage or in their back alley or their backyard.
100%. So I heard you were talking to Joe Espada, and you said you want a player who's going to take initiative and be responsible to themselves first. You're not looking for players who are all the time coming to you for answers. So can you just talk about the mentality and the mindset you want your hitters to have?
Yeah, I think you could do that. You could train guys at an early age. I think we get so caught up at the lower levels, like teaching the swing, teaching them approach, but we have to teach them accountability first, because it doesn't matter how many swings you take in the cage or how many ground balls you take. If you don't learn to trust your work and you're not accountable for your work, it's not going to play in the game because you're not going to have any trust and you're going to make excuses. So when players first come in, the things that should be taught are being able to trust your practice, being accountable to yourselves and the organization and your teammates, and respecting your coaches, respect your staff, respect everybody. Then we can even like start diving into the mechanics of your swing,
Right.
your throwing, because if they're not able to do all those things, you want players to become so that you want them to know that you're there for them, but you don't want them to rely on you. Because I'm not the one in the batter's box. It's not my baseball stats that are going in the batter's box. So you want to help them, teach them to make their own decisions and trust it and do all these types of things. But the word that always strikes out to me for young players is accountable. And you could teach them that stuff. You got to stay on them all the time in the minor leagues so that when they get to the big leagues, they could just help the team win. Because that's all anybody wants on a major league staff, for a guy to come up to the minor leagues and just do your job and help the team win.
So what does the mental aspect look like at the highest level? What makes Anthony Rizzo or Javi Baez tick? What does that look like?
It's different for each guy, but stay at the same. I know that's a crazy answer. Like, each guy goes about it a little different because of their past experiences. So a lot of times your outside life, Javi and Anthony, it's funny you bring up those two guys, have really dealt with a lot of adversity off the field in their life, So the things that Anthony's dealt with as well as Javi has helped them mentally inside the game, to where they're just playing baseball and they're competitive and they know that the sun's going to show tomorrow, or the clouds, and Anthony would always say, you control the weather. And Javi would be like, there's always tomorrow. Like, they just have these outlooks, and people think it's fake, but it's, when you get to know these guys, it's real. I think what separates the players that I've been around in different organizations, they manage their downtime way better than anybody else. So what I mean by that, there's so much downtime in baseball. So a pitch is thrown, you step out of the box, there's like whatever, between 10 and 20 seconds of thought. Like, you could foul a pitch off, be negative. Oh my God, here we go again. This stinks. It's hot out. It's raining. This guy's throwing too hard. Or you could be like, I just missed it. Start a little earlier. I got this guy. battle through a grind. And the guys who manage those thoughts, because those thoughts go on defense, those thoughts go in the dugout, so the guys who can control those downtime, um, the next pitch or the next play, it plays into it because what they were thinking before, right? The thought before the thought it happens, right?
Right.
So it could be a negative thought of don't swing at this pitch, and then the next pitch you swing at a slider in the dirt because you're telling yourself don't, instead of saying something like see it up, lay off, stay it the other way, don't be afraid to get beat. All these types of positive, encouraging things that eventually you're going to lose sometimes, but at least you'll learn from it. But it's I wish more people could see it. I think people don't believe it. Like when you watch these guys do interviews and they just say, hey, I was just trying to put the ball in play, or, I was just really trying to stay positive. It's true. I mean, that's the way these guys get through it. Riz was talking to our minor league players the other day, and he was talking about, he always says, okay, you have a bad day. And this is Ken Ravizza talking too. Like, you have a bad day in practice. Now what? You still got to play in front of 40,000 people at Wrigley Field to try and win a division and win a championship. So nobody cares how your day was. You got to
Yeah.
show up and you got to perform. And that's the difference. There's just no excuses. If they're so accountable and they're able to move on faster so that when they make a mistake or make an out, they learn from it and they get the next pitch and they move forward, then dwell on it. And certain guys could dwell on it for weeks, months, years on certain plays where it affects their game. So everybody's good in the big leagues. Like, even people who say, oh, this guy, he's not very good. He's really good.
Yeah.
Right. Really hard to play in the bigs. And I have so much respect for the everyday guy and the bench guy, like having to be ready, not knowing when to pinch hit, especially nationally. Hey, you're up. No, you're not. You're down. Hey, you're up. No, you're down. Next guy go in. Like, because the pitching changes. But the starters, especially for our guys at Wrigley with the different start times and having the challenge of keeping their bodies healthy and going out and performing, for the fans, and that's what they'll tell you, for the fans of Wrigley, gets them going. It's super impressive. But I think the separated between the best and the middle pack and the below middle tier is how they think, because everybody's got a good swing, right? Everybody can throw,
Yeah.
everybody can run.
They're
So
major leaguers.
yeah, they're pretty good.
What do you respect the most, and why do you think that those career minor leaguers like yourself or the 25th guy on the roster, why do they make good coaches? What is it about them?
Well, I think for me, the reason why I got into coaching wasn't because of hitting, because I didn't really want to get involved in hitting. I just wanted to get into the coaching portion of it to help guys get through, the mindset to where, your confidence, or you lose your confidence, or you just go to places you don't want players to go, because it's the only sport that you have to practice and play every single day for 5-6 months. So I think for the guys who played a long career in the minor leagues, they've been through a lot more. They failed a lot more, and for me, you're always trying to figure out why this guy was good or why this guy was good. How can I get it to play in my game? How do I get to play with freedom, especially the mental part of it? And I think, playing that many years in minor leagues, you ride a lot of buses. I mean, a ton of buses, right? So you're with guys, so you're creating these connections with guys on the bus, whether you're playing cards or, playing music, doing whatever it is so you build these relationships, and you like that. At least for me, I did, and I liked winning in the minor leagues. I like being part of winning teams. So being able to give those experiences to maybe push guys faster, so maybe that they don't make the same mistakes that you've seen done or yourself had done in the minor leagues, and get them going. So that was one of the reasons that I got into coaches, just happened to be in the hitting department.
So I was listening to Joe Espada. Like I said, he does this a lot. So I was listening to him talking to Don Kelly the other day, the Pirates bench coach, and they explained that having both been rovers or in the front office, just moving around, scouting, you're looking for something different than when you're on the field and you're actually in the game, and it's just like a totally different mindset. So can you speak to the difference between what you're looking for in those two different positions?
Well, I think as the coach, you understand what the player or what your team's trying to accomplish that day, their plan, their approach, or things they're working on. So especially in the minor leagues, because you have some time, you really have some time to work on stuff to get ready for the big leagues. And the big leagues, like, you really got to dive into the process, but then you got to perform, because somebody else is coming to take your job and wants to be a part of the organization. So I think as the coach, you see, okay, he's doing this. His stride looks good. He's laying off pitches. He's using the whole field, or he's able to turn it. Or he's laying off these pitches, so these are in play. As the coordinator, I think you're looking at the whole picture. You're looking at every player. You're looking at the coaching staff. You're looking at how the team is being run, how the coaches are doing, because you're also in charge of evaluating the coaching staff. And then, from a scouting standpoint, you're trying to picture, okay, where could this guy fit into the Chicago Cubs major league team in a year or two, or if we need help right now, what are the things? He may not be the best hitter on the team, but is he a good defender? Is he a good teammate? Can you trust him in tight situations? And that's probably the biggest thing that you look for in young players who aren't the superstar minor league players. You're just looking for, can a guy make a routine play so then he could stick in the big leagues and you could rely on him to put him in those situations? Or can he give me 3 or 4 good at-bats? And you're evaluating those at-bats to where, okay, he could grind every at-bat. He could compete with 2 strikes. If we put a hit and run on, he could do these types of things. So I think from when you're stepping back and looking at it from a scouting standpoint or a coordinator standpoint, those are the things that you're evaluating, because you already know Chris Bryant was going to be, a
Yeah.
starting third baseman for the Cubs. We didn't have to worry about, hey, is he going to be able to get the guy over? No, it's how good is this guy going to be? So, but then there's a lot of other pieces that help that team win, or still trying to help the team win and come up, that need to do, not necessarily little things, because I don't believe in little things. Like, everything you do is big, that are able to do the necessary things to win. That aren't that sexy, like the homer and stuff like that,
Yeah, it's everything. It's not just one thing. It's every little piece of it. So Billy Blitzer, is a legend within our organization. You work for the Cubs. Is that type of scout, are we ever going to see that again? And what does someone who is so important, the owner, Theo, they value Billy. Billy got to speak in front of the whole team.
Yes.
What does the scout like that bring? And then what does the future in your mind look like for scouting? Where does it go from here?
I don't know anybody like Billy. I only know Billy, right? So he brings everything. Anything you want in a scout, he's able to bring. And anything up to date or new, he can learn or he can evaluate. But you can't have something new for somebody who's seen the game evolve. Like, so if you have a new coach or myself and say, hey man, this is how we're going to do it, and you have a person who's seen the game evolve, I've only seen it evolve for how many years? 24, 25 years I've been in. Billy, I don't know. He's probably watching. I don't know. 40, 50, I really don't know, Billy, but you've seen this
John
game
Franco
evolve.
said he's 100 years old the other day.
100? Okay, all right. I'll go with Johnny. So if he watched that game evolve over 50 years, there's so much value to that. There's reliability, there's realism in what you're saying. He doesn't speak in absolutes, like this guy's not or this guy is. It's always it's a never know if he's able to take these tools and put it together. So, you like hearing Billy talk about, players today, players from yesterday, and then players, from way back. And I'm interested in not the players he saw in the big leagues, but like when he saw them as amateurs. So the questions I ask him is, what did you see in this guy, or what did you see in this player, and what did you see in this player? So he is well respected in the Chicago Cubs organization, as well as any organization or in Major League Baseball around and anytime. Yeah. Anytime I see him, I love talking to him and seeing how he's doing. He's just real positive, and he just gives you an uplift when you talk to him.
He says 45 years. We were close.
45. Okay, I was 5 off. 5
yeah,
over.
Exactly. So I heard you say that this is going to be one of the most unselfish years for baseball if and when it comes back from a team perspective. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I believe that, talking with, at least with our guys and talking with other coaches, because they know it's very hard in the big leagues, right? Because you want to put up numbers. You're playing baseball. You want to win a World Series, but you also want to make a living out of it, right? And play as long as you can. In order to do that, you have to put up pretty good numbers. So, hitting is the most selfish thing in team sports, right? Because you're up there by yourself. There's no plays. There's no alley-oops. There's no, end zone blocking, 12 guys working. You're in there by yourself, and you got to get it done. So it becomes, at times, a lot of times it can become selfish for the player, and it's rightfully so, right? He still has to do his things, but I think whatever season we have in this short, I you're frozen on me. You there? Okay. Yeah, you were gone too. You got me. You're a little hazy on my end. Yeah, I can hear you. Is Okay. Is that Martino again? That was Martino messing that up?
It must be. It must be. They say that you're okay. So,
Yeah, I'm good.
all right, keep going.
So I think it's going to be one of the most unselfish years. So I hope. So I hope.
So
So
from top to bottom, I feel like Major League Baseball is just figuring it out how to get younger. They said they wanted to get younger with the kids and let the kids play, miking up players. Do you feel like we're going to see a new renaissance in baseball coming up now?
I sure hope so. I think it's pretty good. I think they're able to mic guys up or mic them in a dugout. They're doing interviews in the dugout over the last couple of years, and I think what fans want to see is not the stuff on the actual game, but see guys working behind the scenes. Everybody wants to. I get a front look at it every day of it. I'm like, God, I wish people could see what these players do every day. When whether they lift weights or how they interact during lunch or how they work in the cage or they, throwing the frisbee around the field, whatever it is, just kind of enjoying Wrigley Field. So, we have ours like the marquee. We have a marquee network now, and you go to the Cubs on YouTube channel. They have all the behind scenes stuff. It's pretty cool that they've been putting together. So I love that. So, and I'm a huge fan of baseball. So I think they'll do a better job, and they've been doing a pretty good job the last few years, and it's only going to get better.
We're talking a lot about the grind and the season and everything that goes on behind the scenes. You only really get 3 months off. So if you're going to be in Major League Baseball, you really got to love what you're doing. Can you talk about the grind and just talk about the love of the game?
Yeah, I think it's something that's you've been doing your whole life. Like I don't even know when I started, and I would think that me playing baseball, has outlived pretty much almost everybody I know, except for maybe my dad and my sister, and maybe a couple of relatives. So it's been there forever. It's taken me around the country, around the world, build huge relationships, even my family. So the grind of it is the I think is the challenging part and the fun part. Like, why would you want to continue to do something that's just easy all the time, right? It's never the same game every night. Or, it's not really Groundhog Day, or it may seem like that during practice, but you play a game every night. You play 162 games. Not every game's the same. There's 162 different outcomes and different outs and things like that. So the grind of it is the mentality of, really, because it's such a negative game, is how do you stay positive through all that. And really, and I think if you're surrounding yourself with good people, um, it's not that much of a grind. I think the grind comes into missing your family, being away from your loved ones at times. That's a grind. um, Travel could be a grind at times, trying to get your family out to see you on flights. And my wife, Suzanne, does an unbelievable job with our three kids, flying them to Chicago back and forth while we manage the season. So I think that's what people more talk about, the grind, and I think they also talk about like the injuries and just playing through it as a player and having to play every day. That's pretty much a grind. And you learn so much playing a minor league or major league season into whatever life you have to do after that. Like you just take a step back and things aren't as bad as they seem, because you make a ton of outs, you play through injuries, you're playing in the rain, you get winded out, you get snowed out, you do all these types of things to where you try to take that stuff and how you deal with that in the game when you're trying to perform into your everyday life at home.
All right, so now we're going to do the fun stuff, rapid fire. I'm just going to throw some things at you. Tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. So what's your favorite minor league park?
Portland Sea Dogs, Portland, Maine. Loved it there.
What did you love about it?
It was not like Wrigley. I'm not saying that, but when it's opening days 35 degrees and it's sold out and the fans are there all year long, and you got lobster all the time there, and it's pretty cheap up in Maine. But definitely Portland, Maine was probably one of my funnest summers. But just playing there in general, I don't even really think anywhere else I played even came close to the atmosphere and the energy, and the fans were just tremendous there.
Deep dish pizza or Chicago hot dog?
Pizza.
This is one of my favorite questions. I heard this years ago. Would you rather fight a bear or a bear's weight in foxes?
A bear or a bear's weight in foxes? I think I'd fight the bear. I think I could just take one right to the gut, and as he bends over, one Balboa up. The Balboa hit gut, hit him in the body, the head will fall, and then I could just CrossFit up a tree or something that's that he's down or run away. I know bears can climb trees, but I would go gut, Balboa up, gut done. One bear.
Favorite player growing up?
Everybody on the Yankees. Non-Yankee would be Ricky Henderson, Don Mattingly for sure. Still have the Hitman poster rolled up upstairs in my attic. Willie Randolph, New York guy, you gotta love him. So pretty much all the Yankee guys, but Ricky Henderson was somebody. Was a non-Yankee at the time when he was with the A's. I had a poster up in my room.
Favorite documentary?
How much time you got? I would say right now would probably be Free Solo. I don't know if this was a documentary. It is, but it's like one of those movie documentaries with actors. The one on Motley Crue.
Yeah,
I thought that was really good. We love that one. We had Motley Crue playing all year last year. All the ESPN 30 for 30s. Favorite one might be the Red Sox one or the Bo Jackson one.
You don't know Bo is awesome.
Yeah. I would say the E60 ones are incredible. If anybody out there watches E60, Google Matt Caesar, Chicago Cubs E60. That probably is my favorite, and not because I know him and I get teared up talking about it and I had to hang up. But anything like that. I like the MSG shorts, the NFL, anything that has to show the beginning of where a guy got to. I love those. The Mr. Rogers one was good too.
So good.
Yeah.
So we've said you spent a lot of time from a young age being trusted to teach hitting. So it's been hitting for years and years in the major leagues and in the minor leagues. And as you look forward in your career, are there other roles in the game, bench coach, manager, front office, that you'd like to see yourself in?
For sure. Like right now, you see yourself as you have the job now as the major league hitting coach for the Chicago Cubs, and that's the role you play, and you do that. But I don't think you get into this game to as a minor league hitting coach. You get into the minor leagues, you really don't know where it's going to go or where your likes are going to go. Like at this point in time, you may like this, and then go, oh, I want to venture into this. And there's so many avenues to take in baseball now that yeah, definitely. I still want to do other things, and I don't know if it's like necessarily moving up, but yeah, like a bench coach role where you're like in charge of, running spring training and the culture and the atmosphere of the whole team, including the pitchers, and then being able to run your own team as a manager. That'd be pretty cool. And then, obviously maybe doing something in the front office with scouting or something like that you may want to be interested in, but for sure I could see myself doing different roles and different things. So, but super happy being the Cubs hitting coach as of right now.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do baseball cards now. So I'm going to show you some cards.
You're a little blurry, so I'll have to see. All right. Oh man, that is blurry. Oh, Jeff Jenkins. Okay, he got drafted in 1995. Yeah, Jeff, Jeff Jenkins. Jeff Jenkins played with him with the Milwaukee Brewers. We played in Helena, Montana together in 1995. Won a championship there. So big swing, good hit, good player. World Series champ with the Phillies. Yeah. Who else you got?
Nelson Cruz.
Nelson Cruz. Gosh, coaching against this guy. Do not like to see him at the plate on the other team. He's so quiet with his movements. He's a really good hitter. He's in on every pitch. Got power to all fields. He comes up to the plate. You do not want men on base. Yeah.
Adrian Beltre.
Oh man, El Capitan. A lot of memories. I was very fortunate enough to start my coaching career with Adrian. Still keep in touch with him. Probably one of my favorite, not only baseball players, but one of my favorite persons to be around. Learned so much from him about, dude, you want to talk about playing every day? Like pain is a choice. This guy, I've seen this guy do miraculous things late in his career, having to perform. People have no idea what he was injury-wise was playing with. But the enthusiasm, and the fun he has, and the leadership things that he's done with the team, and just kind of like super positive all the time. But we actually played against each other in 1998, and he got called up and ran off the field, and we were like, "Where's he going?" I think he was like 19, and he never came back until
Don't touch
I
his
told
head
him that
either, right?
story. Yeah. As I got him at the end, he was a little bit better at that. He softened up on a little bit, but like, dude, he
Don't
was
do it.
man, don't mess with it. Don't do it.
Ian Desmond.
Oh man, stud, stud teammate, stud human. Deep conversations with this guy. Consider him a friend. Was very lucky to be around him for 1 year with the Texas Rangers. We won 95 games. He was a big part of that, coming in, being a great teammate, pulling guys together. Really enjoyed him. I'll tell you an Ian Desmond story. We were in Boston, and me and my family was sitting in a restaurant on July 4th. Ian was down there, came over to our table, said hi, and said, "What are you guys doing? If you guys want to do something, I'll watch the kids." I mean, this is the type of guy. This is the type of guy that Ian is, man. So much love to Ian Desmond. Super athlete, super athlete. Big cast, big biceps. Yeah, yeah. Who else you got? Oh, the big Paisan. You're going to show one of the guys that I'm coaching with now, Riz. Riz. So Riz, of course, an Italian American, and we favor those guys, especially, his family's from Jersey and moved down to Florida. Um, Learned a lot in my first year working with Riz of what it takes. Beltre like in playing with injuries, getting through things, can talk himself into anything. Unbelievable fielder. More importantly, the things this guy does, okay, off the field for charities. Who doesn't know, Google his name, report it. This guy will do anything for kids, whatever time in the morning, after a game, before a game, and you watch him interact with these kids, especially maybe they have after a bad week or a bad game, and you know how he's feeling internally, and then he goes all in with these kids and will do anything for them. So Rizzo Charities is awesome. World Series champ. World Series champ. What else is there?
World Series
If you know
champ. Yeah.
anybody who wants any baseball card, I got like 700,000 baseball cards in my garage. I'm trying. I don't know what to do with them.
I feel the
So.
same way. um, well, this is what I did with them. I just incorporated them into the show. I got so many of
I
them.
I did the other day. I went through, at least I counted, right, just about a half a box of 10,000, and started taking out coaches that I worked for or work with
Oh
or
man.
played for, and I just started stacking them up. And And I'm laughing because I didn't think at the time of collecting cards that I would be working with a lot of these guys, today, collecting their cards in 85, 86, 82, 78, 87, 89, whatever year it was.
It's weird. I got all these books now, and I look through it. I'm like, John Shelby. Oh, I met John. You just, it's
Yeah.
weird, right? You should,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so this has been a tough time for everybody with the pandemic. You were in Arizona. You were at spring training. So what was the experience like? And then what's been the best thing that's happened since you've been quarantined?
Yeah. We were in Arizona, and we were watching we were in the cages. John Lester was throwing a bullpen against tight end for the Chiefs. I can't remember his name. I don't know. I think it was him.
Kelsey? Travis
No.
Kelsey?
Yeah. I think it was Kelsey. Yeah, he was in there business. So Kelsey got in there, and then somebody had said, "Hey, the spring training is canceled." And everybody just, John just walked out. So everybody just kind of froze. We didn't know what to do. The next day, we were kind of working out. Really, still didn't know what to do. And then we had a meeting and gave us the option to stay in Arizona, go home. But then, in Arizona, you can only have a certain amount of people at the complex. So the organization stepped up and told everybody, "Hey, just go home, be with your family at this time." Everybody's in different cities. So being home, being with my wife and my 3 kids, and my wife, with her teaching background for 18 years, being able to homeschool my daughter Lily and Abby, who are 7 and 4, while I try to keep Anthony busy at 3 years old in the basement or the backyard for 3.5 hours, while she's teaching him upstairs. So we're very fortunate in a way where we're both here at the same time during this time. And Sue being able to teach them using her background and be there for them, and it's kind of cool to see the kids learn. That's kind of, you don't get to go to school with kids, like you only see their homework and the stuff they did at school, but to actually sit down with them and read with them and do lessons with them and watch them do math, which I don't even know how to do, and it's 2nd grade. They have all these crazy ways that are doing math, so you're trying to learn that, and then just kind of like, I would say, like, being in my neighborhood where I live. It's a stand-up neighborhood, a lot of good people, kind of old school in the way where they look out for each other and take care of each other and watch each other's kids while they're playing in the street. So I think seeing my neighbors more than I'm used to is pretty cool as well. Obviously, it would be with your family, number one. Nothing's even close to that. The time you spend and watching them learn things that you're not able to teach them when you're not at home. But then also being involved with your community and seeing your neighbors that you would only see in the winter, or when you come home for the All-Star break. And in the winter, not too many people are outside as they are in the springtime.
We got like 900 questions coming in from people, but we only got
Sure.
2 minutes left on the on. We could restart it though. I don't know. You got something to do?
No, I'm good.
All right, so we could come back after we finish this 1:40. We'll come back. We'll answer a few more questions from the audience. But before we finish this one, what does baseball mean to you? That's the last one we ask everybody.
Oh man, never really thought about it. I guess it's like a way of life. Like I was talking about earlier. Where did it start? Your relationships that you build, the places you've been, the hugs with the players, and having your family support you through tough times. So like when you think of like the baseball, you just think of this whole journey like a bus filled with emotions, like of your travels and people you met, and sometimes you look back and you're like, wow, been a part of some cool teams, and at the time you're involved in it, you don't know, because you're struggling trying to get there and find wherever to get you need to be. But I think, and I think about baseball as just a way of life for me. Yeah.
That's a great answer. So I've got a couple of the questions written down. We got 30 seconds left. So what we're going to do is we're going to come right back. We'll set it up again and get a few more audience questions because Anthony Iapoce is the man, and he's willing to keep answering some questions. So for now, this is Where Did It Start? Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll come right back and do a few more questions. So I'll see you in a minute.